The NHL has labor peace until 2030. What does it mean for the Leafs? What does it mean for the league? And what other top six piece do we have in store as the trade hunt continues? You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. You know what could have been purchased from Gametime, Dave?
What's that?
Coldplay tickets.
Ooh, you know what?
Play tickets in Toronto.
So many people I see on their Instagrams being like, "Oh yeah, going to the Coldplay at the new stadium," and I'm like, I probably would have liked to have gone to that show. Probably should have looked at game time for that.
Yeah, I would have loved to go to the show, but I do hear it's an absolute gong show getting in and out of that place. Like up at Downsview Park, it's taking people hours to get home. It is a nuisance placement of that stadium.
I've only ever been to Downsview Park once for a concert, and that was AC/DC.
Never been? Yeah, I've never been.
AC/DC, and this was back in I was in university at the time, so 2015-ish. I think it was around where I went. And we had to walk from like Kiel and Lawrence to the venue because traffic was a nightmare. That subway extension was not a thing at the time.
Yeah.
So we couldn't do that. And then getting out was even worse. We like walked endlessly to get out of that place. But yeah. I've heard the same. It got a little better. They figured I think they were like doing it in mixed groups, like in zones, letting people out.
It's insane. Absolutely insane.
It's just the city of Toronto building things without realizing that you got to move people around.
The infrastructure, like there's just they build things without thinking about whether or not the infrastructure can handle that big of a load of people, and it clearly can't. Anyways, Gametime is a spot for your tickets, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sporting event. The Jays, they're off to a great start. They head into the All-Star break pretty soon, and coming out of it, they'll have a couple home dates, so you can grab some tickets. Use code LOCKEDONNHL, get $20 off when using Gametime to get your tickets. All right, Dave, a couple of things that we got to get to today. We've been kind of putting this off for a couple of days, but it's time to finally get to it. The collective bargaining agreement was ratified earlier this week, which gives us labor peace through to the end of the 2030 season in the NHL, which is awesome. No one needs a lockout. No one wants a lockout, and we're not going to get one, at least for another 5 years. So that's good news. That's great. But there's a lot of changes that have been made to the CBA. So we'll get into that today. But also, we've kind of done this series now all week long where we're still trying to find the Mitch Marner replacement. We're trying to find that perfect trade partner who's got that player that could fit in the Leafs top six. And we've thrown out Brian Rust. We made a trade package to try and acquire Brian Rust. We tried Nick Schmaltz out of the Utah Mammoth, tried to see if that could work as a potential trade option. Now there's a new man who is entering the conversation for us here today. Would you like to disclose who this player is?
Well, it's a player that Chris Johnson said on his show could be made available in a trade from Seattle. And that is one Jared McCann.
Jared Leaf legend McCann?
The one who never got the opportunity. The one that got away. The one that got away.
Legitimately, though, because Jared McCann. So what was that? So that was at the Seattle Kraken
expansion draft.
Let me see, Leafs trade. But what was that whole trade? Hold on, let me just look this up really quickly.
So Jared McCann was initially with the Penguins.
Yeah.
and the Leafs made a deal with the Penguins to get Jared McCann and I think Pittsburgh captain.
Actually, so this was a hilarious trade, actually, because there's a couple of guys who Toronto acquired in this deal. I think that that kind of you wish Toronto was able to make this happen. But I think it was Jared McCann, and I believe they got Evan Rodriguez in this deal too. Did they not?
Yep.
Yeah. Jared McCann, Evan Rodriguez, and then Philip Hollander. And Hollander, ended up going back to Pittsburgh at some point. He didn't really turn into anything. And Kasperi Kapanen was the main piece going to Pittsburgh. But Jared McCann, they made the decision to trade for him and then not protect him in the expansion draft. And he ended up being the player that the Seattle Kraken took from Toronto. And lo and behold, the season he had in his first year with the Kraken is definitely one that turned a lot of heads here in Toronto and gained a lot of ire from Leaf fans because he wanted to have a 40-goal season, if I'm not mistaken, that year. His first season in Seattle. 27 goals his first year, 40 goals in his second year in Seattle, 70 points, 40 goals for Jared McCann. And since then, a lot of Leaf fans have been kind of swearing at Kyle Dubas for making that deal, saying, why would you let McCann go so you could keep Justin Hall? That was the debate. Do we keep 7 forwards or do we keep, 8 skaters? And they wanted to keep that extra defenseman. So they kept Justin Hall as the fourth defenseman and they kept 4 skaters. It was an asinine decision by Kyle Dubas in hindsight. And Jared McCann turned in quite the career out in Seattle. 70 points, 62 points, and then 61 points last year with the Kraken. Could be available and really could be a good fit with the Maple Leafs.
Well, the Leafs could. He's not a playmaker by any stretch, but he can score. And
he can make plays. He can pass it a little
probably
bit.
In the right situation he can. But I see him firstly as a sniper because he has that ability. He could score, and especially on the power play, where yes, you have Austin Matthews, you do have Nylander, but you can do so much damage if you can add a McCann to that as well because he's a natural shooter, and it just makes it allows you maybe to also move things around a bit, spread things out with the scoring. I think it would be an intriguing option. I don't know if he completely fits in Toronto in terms of what they need, but
here's where I think he does fit from a flexibility perspective. Like he's someone who can play, left wing, but he's also played center in his career.
True.
And he's someone who technically he can play all 3 positions. He has played all 3 4 positions at times in his career. But if you think John Tavares in the next couple seasons is not going to be able to be your 2C, well, McCann has proven in the past that he can have success in that position. So you do get a guy who can play on the wing, but he can also play down the middle if that's what you need. And if you want to put more emphasis on guys at the center ice position, he's kind of a perfect middle 6 addition to this team. And he can easily go and play up on that second line. He can move him to the right side, play him on the top line. I think he's a move piece. He can move him all over the place. There's a lot of versatility with a guy like Jared McCann, and he is reliable in his own end too. Like that's the thing about Jared McCann. He can defend, right? Like he can really defend. He can play both sides of the ice. I remember when he was drafted, they kind of looked at him and because maybe it was just because he went to Vancouver, but I recall them looking at him and saying, yeah, he projects to be like a Ryan Kessler type player. Leafs have been longing for like a Kessler-esque type of player. That certainly sounds like a Berube type of player, if you ask me too.
Yeah, it does. Somebody who and honestly would maybe also get Austin Matthews off the penalty kill because we've been craving for that as well. I did not know he did have the Ryan Kessler comparable, which is very interesting. And I did hear that like the Montreal Canadiens could look at Jared McCann as a center option because they're dying for just any forward help. Looking for someone to play with Demidov is what I've been constantly hearing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, hey, it would be a kind of poetic if the Leafs were to somehow find a way to bring McCann. I keep want to say McMahon, bring McCann to Toronto after everything that did not happen back all those years ago. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget. It was like a last minute thing. They got McCann, and I'm like, oh, awesome. Jared McCann in Toronto. It's going to be a great pick.
Yeah. And then it's like, actually, they're going to expose him, though. So hopefully he gets. And remember the video that leaked where there was a video leak that said that they were going to take Kerfoot, and people were excited because, like, okay, good. McCann slipped through. Somehow they made a mistake and they took Kerfoot. That didn't happen. That the video was a fake. Apparently, they made multiple videos.
Yeah, they didn't want it. They didn't want it to be leaked who the Kraken were taking, so they did multiple guys.
Right. So they did multiple of those videos, but the Kerfoot one is the one that I guess got leaked online, and it was it was a jam job for those who are excited about the possibility of McMahon on the Leafs. But perhaps they can get a deal done with the Kraken to bring him back home. Stratford kid's like an Ontario boy for him. He's got 2 years left on that deal. Modest $5 million cap hit. Pretty good for a guy who can tuck away 25 to 30 goals and has that type of versatility. Let's come back and let's put together a trade package, Dave. Let's put our GM hats on and see what it would take to pry Jared McCann out of Seattle. So we'll do that next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast. Have you ever decided that last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in handy. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to your first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee. And it takes the worry out of buying. Take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano and Davie Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts and also up on YouTube. We'll be going all summer long, so make sure you're subscribed to the show to get that daily dose of Maple Leafs content and some other stuff that's going on around the league, like the CBA being ratified. We'll go over what changes are coming to the league with that a little bit later on. But we got to finish up this conversation, right? We're continuing the series, the trade hunt for a top 6 piece for the Maple Leafs. And today's target is Jared McCann of the Seattle Kraken. Dave, what do you think it would take? What would the Maple Leafs have to offer the Kraken to get McCann to Toronto?
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one because I don't know what exactly Seattle would be looking to add. Let me kind of take a quick look at their depth chart because that's a team that's been through quite a retool since they've entered the league. So, like, they could just use an influx of just talent on this team. So
it's interesting because I think that it's a weird group. I don't know what this team wants to do. Like, I really just don't know what they're trying to build out there because they've got a weird collection of like youth, but also some like very old players. It's almost like the Detroit of the West in a way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of confusing what their direction is. I'd imagine, they want to move toward the playoffs, and moving Jared McCann doesn't quite get you there. But like, would they want prospects? Would they want win now pieces? A collection of guys? Defense? Do they maybe want a defenseman perhaps? I don't know. It is interesting. There's nothing that sticks out as an obvious need, I guess, for this team.
There is one thing.
Oh, what is that?
Goaltending. Their goaltending stinks.
I beg your pardon?
Their goaltending, they were thinking like it was almost a given that maybe Grubauer would be bought out because he has been so bad. The Joy Decord played better, but still wasn't good enough.
I'm gonna push back on that. Joe Decord is a pretty good goalie. I will say they do have a pretty solid goalie in Joe Decord. Is he like a number one stud? No, probably not. But he is a good goaltender. So I wouldn't say like to say they stink. It's like, yeah, Grubauer stinks. Decord, I think he could be part of a solid tandem though.
He played 57 games, 906 save percentage, 275 goals against. Not bad. The year before was better.
On a per 60 basis, Joey Decord finished 15th in the NHL in goals saved above expected per 60 minutes. Would you like to know the so he finished in 15th. In 16th was Linus Ullmark. In 17th was Ilya Sorokin. In 18th was Aiden Hill.
Yeah.
Better numbers than those players. I'm just saying. You know who was above him, though, at 14? Funny enough. James Reimer.
Yeah.
You know who's number one in that stat this season? Goal saved above expected per 60. You know who the number one goalie was in that stat this year?
Stolarz? No,
Tony Stolarz.
Was it really? Wow, I was a shot in the dark.
Yeah.
With the way you were saying, it's like,
but you'd be willing to give up one of the goaltenders for Jared McCann?
Probably not. Maybe you, as part of the package, you can say, hey, do you want a Dennis Hill to be someone that maybe can vie for a position down the road? Because I think what they're going to do this year is they're going to give that tandem one last shot. If Grubauer isn't able to do it, he's gone. They'll buy the rest of his deal out.
Probably.
They also got a new goaltending coach there too. So they're clearly saying, let's see if we can get it done with this tandem. If not, back to the drawing board. And I think it's probably going to be up front. Like if you're going to really want to improve this team, you're going to have to find a way to, you kind of hit the nail on the head. There's like, they got guys who are in their, over 30s. And you got obviously like the Beniers. They got Tolvanen, Kakko. Actually, they got to get Kakko signed too. I just realized that. But like they just don't have the identity of it. Their forward group is kind of jumbled. They don't really have a stud forward. Now the Leafs don't really have a stud forward to offer. To me, that's where they'll probably ask for Easton Cowan, obviously.
Right. Like it's tough
to find. Not even going to happen.
Yeah, like they may not be good trade partners at the end of the day. It's tough because I think they probably would like to maybe package a couple things together and get a better player. Like, yeah, McCann could be available if it's for like a premier prospect, or you package him together with someone else. I don't know if it's McCann and like a Ty Cartier or maybe a Riker Evans you could possibly put together in a deal, and maybe they do try and go after another team or another goaltender potentially to make that happen. Like a McCann for Merzlikins, like something like that might make a little bit of sense. Or McCann for Stuart Skinner maybe makes a little bit more sense for them. Like you might have to give up an Easton Cowan or Ben Danford, I guess, to make this happen realistically.
Yeah, and like they got picks in
They
Seattle.
wouldn't take Max Domi, you think, would they? It kind of goes with their randomness of what the roster is.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's any better than he's not as good as McCann's a far better player. You'd obviously be more than just Domi, but
yeah.
I don't know.
It's just I like the player. I just don't know if what the Leafs would want to give up versus what he's a good player, but is he worth going, all right, we'll pay the farm for him? I just don't know if that's it either.
Yeah. Unless they decide to give up their 2028 first round pick. which
Yeah, I
they
don't.
could do if they wanted.
This is
They
where
could
if they had more prospects lined up that Seattle would be interested in, or more NHL, like guys who are kind of on the cusp of the NHL.
Well, there actually, you know what? There's an interesting name. There is one interesting name that I think could maybe catch their attention. What if not Stolars, not Wall, but maybe a Hildeby or an Akhtiamov?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Right, like Hildeby is the one closer to the NHL. But maybe they'll just want that like Akhtiamov probably has a higher ceiling.
There's a lot of love for Akhtiamov and kind of what he's been able to do the last couple of years. So maybe,
Yeah.
maybe Domi and Akhtiamov, Domi and Hildeby. It's that would be like a preferred package if you're Toronto. But anyways, that's not up to us. That's up to True Living to figure that one out. But that would be a good target, and he'd be a great fit, I think, on this team if they can figure out a way to make that trade happen. All right, we'll take one more break. Let's get back. Let's get into the CBA finally and talk about the changes coming to the NHL 2 years from now, I guess. Not next season, but the season after. So we'll get to that next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Davie Morassutti with you, and pretty big news in the NHL earlier this week. The players and the league came together and they ratified the collective bargaining agreement, which will keep labor peace in the NHL through to the 2029-2030 season. So no strike coming. They agreed to a deal. Both sides happy with the changes that were made, and we'll go through some of those changes that are coming through. Again, not next year, but the season after. I would say the biggest change from now to the current CBA to the new CBA that is gaining the most run is the change from 82 games to 84 games. So starting in the 26-27 season, 84 game regular season. What do you make of that, Dave?
I mean, look, it's good to at least. I mean, you and I both lived through 2 labor stoppages, right? With one season being wiped out and the 48 game season of 2012. Like, it's nice to know that both sides have found ways to just not even entertain the conversation of there being any strike. Like the word strike has not been uttered, and I like it. But at the same time, there's clearly there's been some concessions made on both sides to allow for that to happen.
Which is going to happen in any negotiation, right? You got to meet in the middle somewhere. So the players wanted a shortened preseason. They said, sure, we'll shorten your preseason. It's a week less of training camp. It's 3 less games. But guess what? You're going to play 2 more regular season games for us to make up for that. And that's essentially what's happening. So it's a shortened preseason, but an extra couple games of regular season hockey. So that was one thing that really caught the attention of a lot of people. That's a pretty significant change. And it'll kind of change, like even from a betting perspective on FanDuel. That's 2 extra games. You got to think like we're doing over-unders on season totals. You got to think there's 2 more games where guys could do that, right? Like if Matthews was playing in an 84 game season a couple of years ago, he would have had 2 more cracks to hit the 70, right? So it's kind of interesting, and what it could mean for the record books as well, moving to an 84 game season. Interestingly enough, too, a couple other things. The max contracts, they're shortening it. If you're re-signing your player, going from an 8-year max to a 7-year, and then in free agency, goes from 7 to 6 years if you sign as a free agent. So both of those being scaled back 1 more year. The league is also including a postseason salary cap, so no more LTIR, and then randomly putting out $100 million on the ice. Can't do that no more. So your roster must be cap compliant. Whatever active roster that plays in that game must be cap compliant. So the LTIR loophole for the playoffs gets closed. So, we've seen many times, whether it's Vegas or it's Florida, kind of get around that, skirt the rules a little bit. Tampa, way back when, can't do that anymore. Won't be able to do that anymore. So that loopholes will be closed in a couple of years.
And you know what? Like, thankfully, right? Because you can't be calling for a hard salary cap only for it to not be a hard salary cap in the playoffs when it's most crucial for competitive reasons, right? You look at the teams that have won the cup the last few years, Tampa, Vegas, Florida, have all done it by exceeding the salary cap.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to talk, like, everyone talks about common denominators with these last few cup winning teams. Oh, the no tax states, the Florida factors, and all that. Look at the salary cap factor of it too. Like, Chicago was the first to do it when they did the Patrick Kane LTIR, but the guy was actually hurt. They're like, oh, we can do this. Let's go and add a bunch of players to the roster. So the NHL created this. I'm surprised it took them this long to realize it.
Yeah. So moving forward, that will not be a problem. There's also going to be there's going to be a lot more money also given out to the players for the playoffs and the success of their team. So they'll make more money in playoff bonuses. They're increasing the NHL minimum salaries. That is the league minimum will now be $1 million. Did I read that correctly a couple days ago? They're raising the league minimums. I thought I saw it was going to go up to $1 million. Could be a little, could be wrong, but I thought I read that. But either way, it's going up, which is awesome for
nice for sure.
Obviously, but here's one that obviously I think we're all excited to see. Extension of the NHL's commitment to the Olympics through 2030. So not only will they be at the Olympics next year when it's in Milan, but they're also already committing going to the Olympics in 2030 as well.
Yeah, no, it's good.
And that's one thing that the players really wanted. So like that was something they bargained for. They had to give up some stuff, right? But that's one thing that they really, really wanted, and they got it.
It goes to show, okay, you want to be in the Olympics, be open to an 84-game season. Because we know there was a bit of pushback from the players on an 80, because like the NFL did it, but there was a lot of talk of not being widely accepted, right? And I feel like this was the same thing with 84 games, right? The regular season's already so long, right? And everyone's just like craving that playoff hockey. But the NHL's like, well, if you guys want to go back to the Olympics, we're gonna need something. It's every time there's a bargaining, as you said, like in bargainings, you gotta give up something to get something. And I'm sure this was probably something the NHL says, we really want this. So you're gonna have to find a way to make it work for us to have it.
Yeah. One of and again, the 84 game season was one thing that the league wanted, that the players had to kind of bend the knee and accept. And the other thing is elimination of deferred payments. So no more deferred payments also, which, the Leafs just benefited with the Tavares contract with some deferred payments. And that's how it got to 4.38. Because technically it would have been 4.5, but because the deferred payment cut it down by $125,000 or $120,000, I guess. Which
of course when the Leafs do it, of course that's when it has to end.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But probably the coolest thing that I think we're all really excited about, emergency e-bugs, Dave. Emergency e-bugs will now be a permanent paid position in the NHL. Paid position, a full-time e-bug for each team. That's kind of cool.
It is, and it just goes, you get away from the Scott Foster.
In a way, it sucks. I will say that.
It does.
The Zamboni driver is the most famous one, right? Like, that is the most famous one. And unfortunately, it happens.
The David Ayres nightmare that will continuously live on.
Funny enough, David Ayres has like a rookie card, like he has a young gun.
Oh, how much is that worth? I want to hear
Dude,
this one.
it's actually worth a good amount. Like it's worth like $40 or $50. It's
Wow.
actually worth a decent amount of money. Like it's up there. It's worth about the same amount of money as like a Jack Eichel rookie card. Funny enough. Yeah, just to put that into perspective for you. But yeah, so those stories won't be there anymore. But it was kind of silly, anyways, realistically, to have and like kind of a joke around the league to have a taxidermy person go out there and try and stop pucks, or the Zamboni driver to go out there and stop Austin Matthews from shooting into the back of the net. No other league was doing, archaic stuff like that. Absolute.
Remember the Leafs used a couple years ago. They used an e-bug, but that was more so just out of
That's where the back was a Jet out. No,
Jed Alexander was he was a backup.
Yeah, he didn't actually
Matt
play.
Murray was injured. Samsonov needed a backup, so they brought this kid in.
Yeah,
and he actually played
Ryerson, right? He played for Ryerson at the time? U of T.
Yeah. And he played like the final. He was in goal for the final minute, but
that's right.
Just a single shot.
I remember actually we interviewed him on Leafs Lunch afterward too, and asked him about that experience. We should try and get him on the show. I bet you he'd join us, Jed Alexander. Let's find out what he's up to, and see.
Will he be Will he be in the e-bug conversation moving forward?
Well, I think that's kind of what you would think is like. It's not going to be like a Matt Murray, right?
No.
Like you would think it's not going to be someone who wants to actually pursue and continue to like be a quality goaltender in their career. It'll be interesting to see who does that backup, that e-bug position. Because it's not going to be Hildeby, right? Like he'll be the third goalie, but he's going to be the goaltender for the American League. It's not going to be Akhtiamov. You want these guys to play, right? Like this guy's not going to play unless all hell breaks loose and both your goalies get hurt in one game. You're just not hoping that ever happens. So it's not going to be like an actual goal. That's what's going to be kind of fascinating as to who they elect to be these backup goaltenders. Is it like retired guys? Like are they just going to bring back like Cujo? I don't know. Like could it potentially be like if you're, for example, Florida, right? Roberto Luongo is in the building. You just make him your emergency backup, and
I think Roberto Luongo would probably say, "Nah, let's let somebody else face those shots."
Yeah, I guess probably. Now we'll see how that thing kind of plays out. Thought it was really interesting though. They'll have permanent emergency backup goaltenders. It'll be a new full-time paid position in the NHL. Not going to count to the active roster. Not going to count towards the salary cap. But somebody's going to make a decent chunk of change, I'm sure. As the permanent e-bug of the Toronto Maple Leafs specifically. They'll get to travel with the team. They'll get to be a practice goalie. I'm sure that it'll be quite the highly sought after gig. Maybe a guy like who I'm thinking? What like an Andrew D'Agostini?
Yeah,
a guy like that, right? Like you probably would prefer that than wither away in the ECHL. Like if you're already in your late 20s and 30s, and it's just the NHL is probably not going to happen for you. That's probably the pool that I'd be picking from, right? Where you can still make money playing professional hockey, but you're not going to ever become an NHLer. This is the only way, right? It's probably better to be a 30-year-old e-bug than it is to be a 30-year-old starter in the ECHL that doesn't have a strong chance to really progress past that.
Yeah.
I would think. All right. Anything else that I missed?
No. Oh.
Yeah. The dress code on game days has been eliminated.
All right. The most important part of that whole thing.
Yeah. Can you believe that that was something that the players collectively bargained for? We don't want to wear suits. Make sure it's in there. No suits on game days. We want to wear sweats and whatever the hell we want.
Why is that a league? Why does the league have to be involved in that? Why can't the teams just be like, we like for you to wear this, but we also understand that, I mean, with the way that fashion is nowadays, like, why did this have to be to me, the fact that was put in there, a little embarrassing. Not going to lie. It's a little embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree. All right, buddy. We'll leave it there. That'll do it for us today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mick_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys on Monday. Enjoy your weekends, everybody. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.